John Schuhman does a great job covering the NBA for NBA.com. Kind enough to join us on a Wednesday on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline for a couple moments. John, appreciate a couple moments, pal. How you been?
I'm great, Rich. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks for jumping back on. All right. How about last night? I mean, I had to mea culpa here and apologize to the Houston Rockets. They showed guts. They showed a little gumption. They showed a ton of heart last night. Listen, for a team to get blown up by 41 and then come back and go back on the road and beat Golden State, that's a hell of a win for them last night.
Yeah, I think it's a reminder that, hey, this was a pretty good team. We can't forget that these guys won 65 games in the regular season, that they have, two of the best playmakers maybe in NBA history, and a really good supporting cast, a good defensive supporting cast. And I think that's where, we really saw their toughness last night, especially in the fourth quarter.
Yep.
They were scrambling. The Warriors are tough to guard, not only because of their talent, but because they move the ball and they move bodies. And I was just amazed at how Houston was able to keep up defensively, especially in those last few minutes. It takes multiple efforts on every possession to defend the Warriors, and it takes great communication, because you could be trying as hard, but if two guys go to one guy and that leaves somebody open, you're in trouble. And there was, the Warriors did miss a couple of open shots, but I thought the effort and the communication defensively was fantastic last night.
Yeah, the Rockets hold them to 12 fourth-quarter points. Curry struggles in the fourth quarter. I know no Iguodala. Obviously, Thompson was banged up. I think the game really started to shift a little bit, especially, we talk about the ebb and flow of these types of games. It reminded me of a boxing match, heavyweights just slugging it out. You get knocked down, you get back up. But you started to see the momentum a little bit because the Rockets were able to withstand that third quarter. And that's typically when the Golden State Warriors really start to just crush a team. They blow them out, and they chipped away. They hung in there. Paul with a couple big shots, as you mentioned. You got Tucker. You had Ariza. I know Harden was quiet in the second half, but he shot them back into the game early on. Because I mentioned this during the opening monologue. We're talking about a 10, 12-0 lead by Golden State. That game easily could have been 20-0 of a blink of an eye. So I give Harden credit. Paul had some big shots, but collectively, going back to what you said defensively, I just thought they decided enough is enough. We're not going to take this anymore. We're not going to tolerate this nonsense. We're not going to be bullied around. We got blown up by 40, but we're going to figure out a way to clamp down. And that's something that typically people say their MO is soft, but last night they came out and they said in the fourth quarter, we're going to clamp down defensively. And then, John, I also thought that Golden State kind of got rattled late, and they kind of gagged a little bit late in that game.
Yeah, I think they did. I think, they felt the pressure a little bit, and I think Kerr probably would go back and take a timeout on that last possession where first Durant got bottled up and then Thompson got bottled up in the corner, and they didn't really get they got a contested shot over Trevor Ariza. But yeah, you're right. The withstanding both the 12-0 run or to start the game,
Yep.
and then the Curry shots in the third quarter, to withstand both of those blows is really impressive. And I think they did a good job after that sort of flurry of Curry shots to overplay him on the 3-point line and force him to go inside. He can do that. He's a really good finisher at the basket, and he knows how to sort of leverage his 3-point ability to get layups, and not only for him but for his teammates. But they were able to sort of put pressure on him up front, force him inside, and then help and recover. And that, like I said, that takes multiple efforts, and that's what they brought. And doing it with basically a 7.5-man rotation, which makes it even more impressive. These guys were all playing 40+ minutes.
Yeah, and they were also crashing the boards, too. And I know Golden State might have out-rebounded them, but you saw the second effort a couple times from Tucker, from Capella as well, even from Ariza. So they were out-hustling. Listen, they earned that win last night. Do you think, though, listen, I still like Golden State. I still believe Golden State's the better team and they're going to win the series. Has your opinion changed either way from what you saw last night by the Rockets?
No, I think I still favor the Warriors to get one of the two games in Houston and win probably Game 6 at home. But just from a fan's perspective, it's great that
love
it's
it.
2-2, and I was thankful that the Rockets won game 2 because, that was, then that made, that that brings a little bit of intrigue to both 3 and 4. Even though the Warriors blew them out in game 3, the Rockets still had a shot to get home court advantage back, and that's just what they did. So, from a fan's perspective, it's great. I'm covering the Eastern Conference final, so watching that series is my off day entertainment, I guess, and I've been entertained so far.
Let's talk about that Eastern Conference Finals, and you got Boston and you got Cleveland. LeBron, 6 40-point games in the postseason. He's taken his game, it's crazy to say, to another level, but now you start to get the role players chip in. How much pressure is it on Boston to win tonight, because they cannot figure out a way to win on the road? And you're talking about a closeout series with LeBron. We know kind of the games that he's had in the past. Or do you think they'll be a little loosey-goosey tonight? Or is there pressure on them?
Yeah, I think there's pressure. I think there's pressure on – I'd say there's more pressure on the Celtics for Game 5. But I think, they're more comfortable at home. I think they know how to beat the Cavs. I think they just played poorly in Cleveland. Game 3, they just came out flat and stayed flat. The energy wasn't there. They're a team that has come back from, they lead the league in comebacks basically from double-digit deficits to win games. And there was never any sign in Game 3 that they were coming back.
Right.
And then in Game 4, I just thought they made a lot of dumb mistakes. Like they did a lot of silly things. Like just the first quarter example, like the Cavs were in the bonus and the Celtics committed 3 fouls away from the basket. Basically, one in the backcourt, one, breaking up a fast break that wasn't really an advantage for Cleveland, and then another one, fouling Larry Nance on a roll to the basket, like an obvious foul. And those were all with Cleveland in the bonus. They just gave them free trips to the line. They took some bad shots. There's other, just dumb things that they made. I just thought it was uncharacteristic of them to just make mistakes like that. This is a team that had won 7 of 8 from Game 7 of the first round through Game 2 of this one. Basically just out executing the teams they were playing, just playing with patience and execution and just being smarter than the other team. And so I thought the last 2 games are really uncharacteristic of them. So I'm curious to see how they rebound in this game. I think they've got to do a better job of taking away the other guys and seeing, if staying at home on LeBron's teammates and having him try to beat them by himself is the better strategy.
Yeah, and it's funny, you mentioned just the sloppiness and the carelessness by the Celtics, but even for Cleveland, LeBron puts up the monster numbers, but listen, he makes up for it when he turns the ball over because he gets back on defense. But the 7 turnovers, love with the 6 turnovers, sometimes rushing the shot. Now, they got bailed out, too, because they finally get production from Thompson, who I think had a very, just a solid night with the double-double. You got something from Hill. Smith decided to show up. But I still maintain this. It always seems to come back to LeBron. It's not like the ISO what Houston does. Do you get the sense, though, that Boston will be okay with LeBron getting his, but if Love starts to go off, if Smith starts to go off, then that favors Cleveland?
Yeah, I think, they've ran into trouble a little bit when, Cleveland, obviously, almost every possession is trying to get Terry Rozier switched on to LeBron. And the Boston reaction to that is always interesting, whether they double team, whether they send a different defender and make Rozier scramble to find somebody else to guard. And LeBron is great at taking advantage of that, and I think that's going to continue to be a big element of what happens on that end of the floor going forward. Maybe they just let him go at Rozier. I don't know. Like maybe if just stay at home, and so they're not sort of scrambling defensively as much, and other guys to take advantage. That's a big one, and I think they offensively they've got to try to get Al Horford going as they did early in Game 4, but also they need Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown to take advantage of their matchups.
Let me leave you with this. Is there any concern with Stevens? I don't know if he's going to publicly admit it, but they're just not a good team on the road. So no matter what, they're going to have to figure out a way, unless they believe they can go back to Boston and win a Game 7 where, hey, you got LeBron, you throw your hat in the ring, anything can happen on a Game 7. But just they're not – I don't get it. I mean, how can they be so good at home but then struggle on the road like they have been?
It's interesting. Their home court advantage over the course of a season usually is worth or game to game on average is worth 3 or 4 points. For the Celtics, it's been 20 points. So it's a little bit mind boggling. Maybe he needs to pull out the measuring tape, like in Hoosiers and show them that the basket.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, sure. Put Ollie put Ollie on your back. There you go. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And show them that the free throw line is still 15 feet from the hoop. But I don't know. It'll be interesting that obviously they don't need to win on the road to get to the finals, but Game 5 is going to be huge. If they can't win in Cleveland, obviously they're putting a ton of pressure on themselves to win both tonight and in Game 7.
Yep, no doubt. All right, John, I appreciate a couple of moments, pal. I know you're busy. Enjoy the game tonight. Hopefully we'll talk next week. We should have everything decided for the NBA Finals. We get a Game 7 respectively. The NBA is going to love that as well from a rating standpoint. Appreciate you jumping on board for a couple of moments on a Wednesday.
Anytime, Rich. Thanks.
You got it. John Schuhman does a great job covering the NBA. Great follow on Twitter as well.